All right, everyone. I'm going to fill in and play the role of Kelly Chase, our marketing coordinator with Automation here for a second. We are the sole U.S. distributor of IDEA, a powerful user-friendly data analysis tool designed to help auditors, accountants, and other finance professionals perform data analysis quickly to improve audits and identify control breakdowns. And I want to thank you for joining us today for Tackling Tough Import, brought to you by me. I'm the sales engineer, Scott Smith, with Automation Services, and I do regularly present solutions as the solutions manager and sales engineer to key decision makers to help professionals determine how to apply data analytics to improve their work performance. And our goal here at Automation Services is to help you get the most out of your IDEA installation. And that includes helping you gain confidence in using IDEA and learning new time-saving tips along the way. So I'm going to go on the assumption today that everybody has at least a little bit, if not a considerable amount of experience using IDEA. But some of the things that I personally get asked to do by our sales team and marketing team and other teams in the company here is to help people conquer challenging imports. And most of those are PDFs or printed reports. One of them that is a particular bugaboo is people get dumps of data, general ledger data from QuickBooks. It goes from QuickBooks to, say, Crystal Reports, or from QuickBooks to Excel. You got multiple tabs. You've got all of this GL data with accounts and transactions and journal entries and on and on and on. And it's just a huge mess. I actually helped a very successful local CPA here in the Houston area. It was taking almost a week to unwind a QuickBooks dump. And honestly, within 30 minutes, I had the templates created. I actually used 4 different templates, one for each tab because they were slightly different. Imported the data, appended it all, and then balanced. Credits and debits balanced to 0. We were good to go. So it made about a 4-day process into a good, solid 30-minute process, and they were kind of happy. The next thing I want to do is kind of expand out of that a little bit. So let me go to the next slide here. Report Reader is actually a very powerful tool inside of IDEA that allows you to take print reports, PDF, text, PRN, you name it, virtually any type of report that's printed to a file. So mainframe text reports, you know, those old DBase reports. Anything DOS printed to disk, a generic text like a file, if you print it, save it to a .txt file. Accounting reports, emails that are saved to a .txt or an ASCII type format, PRN files, tab separated, even standard SDF type files. But the ones that we get asked the most about is PDFs. Now there's a couple of things that need to be clarified with a PDF import. When you get a PDF and it's saved from a system, XYZ, to a file, there is typically data underneath that PDF layer. And if you can put your mouse on the document, left click and drag and highlight maybe the first name or the last name or a dollar value, and only the dollar value or only the name, then there's data. And we can probably pull that out and make a template, save yourself some time and energy, and be able to put that into a database form and do some good solid work with it. The next thing that you need to know is if it is a scanned PDF. Very, very common. You get the printers, the all-in-one printers that have the scanning on top. You can scan it, but all it does is take a picture of the document and puts it as a .pdf file. But if you take that file and open it in Adobe Reader or what have you, left-click somewhere on the document and move your mouse, the whole document lights up. What that indicates is it's a scan. You've got to do optical character recognition, which is not incorporated into IDEA. You'll have to use something like Adobe, or there's a bunch of them out there that do a really, really solid job. And I always tell folks, Adobe or any type of optical character recognition does not do a good job with handwritten notes. It does a terrible job with a coffee stain on the piece of paper. Or if you wrinkle it up and spread it back out and there's all kinds of creases and whatnot, it just doesn't read it well. So if you're going to OCR, get a good, solid, crisp, legible copy. Keep it clean. Keep your copy away. keep the dog away, scan it in, OCR it, make it into a readable PDF, and you should be good to go. All right. So these are the things that we're going to try to do if we got time today. I've got 3 examples queued up. One is that ugly QuickBooks, and I'm going to show you that QuickBooks file in Excel form, and we're going to walk through. It's got multiple tabs, it's got multiple formats, the data, but the data lines up nicely because it was dumped to an Excel workbook. And in Excel, all the journals are in the same column. The columns just may be smushed up. The next thing we're going to try is one that's particularly troublesome. It's called a floating layer or a floating trap. If you've ever done PDF imports or report reader imports, you know typically the data lines up nice across the page in rows and down the page in columns. Well, a floating layer is the example I'm going to use is like Windows event log information, where you got the IP address and you got the date and the time, and it kind of, some IP addresses are longer than others and some URLs are longer than others, so it kind of floats left and right across the page. And then the third question I get asked almost invariably is, well, you know, I get information, but sometimes the PDF header for each particular subcategory has multiple lines. What do you do to conquer that? Idea Report Reader can handle that too. And if time permits, I've got a freebie because it caused me a huge headache a couple days ago. I'm going to show you something with Excel. All right? So we're going to go ahead and jump on in there and go right to the demonstration. So give me a couple seconds here to make sure that I can get to my IDEA instance. There we go. Hopefully you're seeing my IDEA instance right now with a blank screen. I've got me a managed project down here called Challenging Report Reader Imports. If I flip over to my library, inside the source files, you can see I've got a text file, an Excel file, a couple of PDFs, and then a couple more Excel files. These are the freebies we're going to do here. I just want to show you something that kind of gave me a headache and make it a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to actually open up this sample GL. And in order for me to do that, I need to open up, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, and we're going to open up Windows Explorer, go to my project right there, because you guys know a project inside of IDEA is just a folder on a hard drive resource somewhere. And you can configure that to where they're located. So I'm going to click on the source files folder, and it's the same files right here in my project. There's the sample GL. It's a pretty good sized file, so take a few breaths. Let me double click on that guy and open it up. Excel, as cool as it is, does take a little bit of time if there's a considerable amount of data and it's a little bit formatted up. So there's a 2-step process that we're going to use on this one just because it's so ugly. Give it a couple seconds to actually open up that Excel spreadsheet, and it's on my other screen, and I'm going to drag it slowly over here for you folks to see. Okay, so this is the ABC Associates General Ledger dump. You can see I've got the account number, account description, a subcategory, and an account description there, and then the the journal entries. There's a journal type and a transaction type and a batch number all the way across, beginning balance, debits, credits, ending balance. So, and if you scroll on down through the page, you're going to get to the point where the account changes and whatnot. So in typical import fashion, what I'm going to do is, for ease, I'm just going to do one tab. All of the tabs are basically the same. They just have different account numbers in a different journal stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this guy out. See, this is what happens when you have too much data in Excel. You'll have to bear with me a second here. IDEA is trying to close that out. There we go. The cool thing is we just don't have that issue with IDEA. The amount of data just doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the version 10 functionality. I've got the sample GL that we just looked at in my project. I'm going to right-click and say import that guy. It says that there's a lot of rows. It's going to show me a preview. we're just going to do the first tab, but as you can see, it's no more pretty in this viewer than it was in Excel. If I scroll down, we eventually get to the data, but you know what? That doesn't do much for me, and the first row is not field names. So I'm going to leave these unchecked because I want to import it and just have it raw, exactly like it looks in Excel. This is the key to this type of import. Leave them unchecked, click OK, and IDEA imports it from Excel into IDEA, and now we can scroll across. See how well everything lines up now? All the journals, all the journal types, all the beginning balances, the credits, the debits are all in nice columns. That's key. All right, the first step on this two-step process is to import the data directly from Excel, just as ugly as it is, and then we're going to immediately go and export that data to a fixed length file. Okay, so just click Export, Fixed Length. You can change the name over here if you want. You can see all of the fields are column names. We're just going to leave them and click OK. So that little process there took this ugly representation of the data and exported it over here and made me a fixed length file, a .fxd. Okay, so I could open that up in Notepad and show you, and I just might do that for grins, just to make sure you guys know that I don't have my hands will never leave my sleeves here. I'm going to go to Exports. There's Fixed Length, and I'm going to open that with Notepad. And on my other screen here, since it is quite a large file, you drag it back over. And there, this is what it looks like in Notepad. Still basically unusable. All right, close that back out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this fixed length and we're going to use the report reader to grab the rows and the columns that we're interested in and put it into a usable format. So pay attention, just kind of pay attention to the process. It sounds like a little daunting, but it's not. So I'm going to go to Desktop, and I'm going to do a report reader. I'm going to navigate to wherever that file is. Remember, it's in my exports folder. Now this is what we're striving for right here, is to create a template so we only have to do this tab's import one time. Next time I will apply the template over the top of the tab and it'll automatically format my data up. So let's leave that blank to create the template for the first try. So click Next, and in my other screen here, that's the representation of that fixed length data in IDEA's report reader. Okay. Now what I want to point out is everything is nicely lined up, just like it was in Excel, just like it was on the text document or in the Notepad. Everything is lined up nicely, and we get to decide what pieces and how we want to format this data. The way that you have to attack any import, PDF, text, PRN, delimit, whatever, in Report Reader is you start from the middle and you work your way up, and you make layers on anchor lines and append lines. Okay, these are terminologies you don't need to really be too concerned about. If you go to the Start button, go to the All Programs, go to IDEA, there's a documentation folder that has an extremely comprehensive tutorial on how to import data using the Report Reader. This is what you need to focus on. Choose a transaction, the most detailed layer of information or level of information in the report that represents all of the other transactions in the report. Left click, drag your mouse, and for this nicely lined up report, we're going to do a standard layer. So by highlighting that row and clicking Yes, IDEA takes a little snapshot of it and anchors the report based on that row of data. The next thing you have to do is what's called applying traps to the data to identify what does that row look like and every other row that looks exactly like it. Okay, so you need to define a pattern by putting your mouse above the anchor line, and you can use global traps. or you can use specific traps. So if I only wanted the transaction types that started with a G, I could type a G right there, and the C items would not be trapped. But for this one, I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to say in this location, this column, there is a space. Well, that didn't do too much for me because the whole report lit up and highlighted, which means that I haven't identified anything. But now right here, there is a text object and another text and another space. Did you notice how the trapped rows slowly got more and more specific? So that's what we're striving for, is to be able to identify the items that we want and only those items. So let's go ahead and scroll down a tad. As you can see, I don't have any of the rows in between here. None of the headers are none of the account information is being trapped, only the transactions. So we're golden. This is exactly what we want to do. After we've got our data rows trapped, we need to define columns. And the cool thing is we get to name them and define exactly what we want. Put your mouse inside the yellow lines, hold down the left mouse button, and drag. When you let the mouse go, it identifies a column within the rows that you have identified in the step before. Put your mouse over here and click, and you can name it. And you can tell it what type of data is in that particular column. And then you go to the next one. Left click and drag. And then you go to the next one. And you say this is the batch number. But you know what? I don't want it to be numbers. I want it to be characters. So you can change the data type that's going to be created inside of your IDEA database. And then ultimately you're going to walk all the way across the file, and you're going to pick off every item that you're interested in. Now, I'm going to go to the end here, and then I'm going to back up one step. Now you see right here the balances, the debits, the amount, the credits, they're offset. Just because the header's here, all of the data is right here. So what I would probably do is snag a big swath across what I consider to be the debit and give that a name. IDEA already identified that it's numeric with 2 decimal places. We're good to go. Same thing over here. There's the credit, and give it a name. Numeric 2 decimal places. And I don't care about the balances. IDEA is I can summarize the data by various things inside of IDEA and acquire balances. I don't want this thing to put the balance there for me. All right, so after you would have done all of this stuff, you save the layer, and we're going to preview it. Previewing it goes in and lets you see what your work's going to look like ultimately when it's imported into IDEA. So I went from that ugly Excel spreadsheet that was very comprehensive. Somebody did a lot of work to be able to format that guy up. I'm putting this into transactional level data. But let's go back over here and say all of these guys right here are associated with a journal that sits right up above them. An account type, a journal has an account type. A journal type has an account description. So I need to associate that, and now I'm going to do what's called an append layer. This is my base layer. I'm going to do an append layer. Okay? Left click, drag on the data that you're interested in, release it, and create a second standard layer. So what's the first step? Trap the data. Since Excel was so nice, it's everything in a nice, solid, consistent manner for me. If I put a colon right there, it traps just the account rows. And then you got to go in and just pick out your columns. So I'm going to scroll over, and I'm going to say account number. I don't want it to be numeric. I want it to be character. Left click and drag. This is account description. I want that to be character. So I've got me a second layer. If I save that, now I'm leaving out a step here, I'm going to show you. If I preview this data, Kelly just came in and told me about the poll questions. The first poll question is going to come after I get done with this particular example. So we got a couple seconds here. Now look at this. The account description is only associated with the first record. That's not good. So here's a way to be able to overcome that. So click on the item that you're interested in and say this account number needs to be used until the value changes. So use the value from the previous record until that value changes. And then we're going to do the same thing here. This attribute is use the value from the previous record. Let's go ahead and preview again. And now look, I've got the proper account and description associated with the proper journal. We're good to go. All right, so now what I'm going to try to do is I want you to close your eyes, because I would save this template and then I'd use it next time I got this sample GL tab number 1. So let me get rid of my work here. And I'm going to delete my base layer. If you delete the base layer, all of the layers are deleted. All right. So now I've imported my Excel spreadsheet. I've exported it to a fixed link. I've got the fixed link file open in my report reader, but last month I did the same thing. So this month I just go over and say, let's open up a template. IDEA looks in my current project, and I've got my GL 0000 to 1999, and it applies the template over the top of it. I can go over and interrogate it to make sure everything is all captured. Scroll through it a little bit. Let's preview it a little bit, and we'll see now I've got my account name, my sub name, journal types, all the way through to my debits and credits. We're completely good to go. So the last step is to literally go in and import the data into IDEA. Give it a name if you want to. Click Finish. And then you've gone from this to this. I'm going to close. What's the name of the utility used to pull PDFs into IDEA? It looks like pretty much everybody got Report Reader is the correct answer. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the next type of import that we're going to try. And I believe if I can get back to my screen here, I wanted to show you a floating layer. Now, floating layers can be a challenge because you still have to look for patterns in the data, but the report reader has been designed to allow you to look for stuff like that. And I'm going to use what's called access.txt, standard text document. Let me open it up and show you what that guy looks like before we get going. Okay, there we go. You see how there's an IP address and it kind of moves all across the screen. And let me see, format, I don't want word wrapping. There we go. So you couldn't do a standard layer on this because if I wanted to get the IP address, I would miss some data right here. If I wanted to do the date, I would miss some data because it's misaligned, so to speak. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. Again, right-click and import the data. Choose a report reader. It's already pointing to my access text. I've got a template that I can apply after I save it. Save me a bunch of time next time. As long as I get the same dump from the same place and it's a similar data, we can do that. But I'm going to hit next and drag it from my other side here. All right. There we go. So if I was to do it the way that I would normally do it, I open up the file in a notepad or something. I always want to interrogate, get my head wrapped around the data to see what it looks like. What is my challenge before I bring it into Report Reader? But ultimately what you're going to do is you're still going to anchor the report. Left click and drag. Okay? It's instead of doing a standard layer, we're going to create a floating layer. floating layer is going to do a couple things. It's going to let IDEA know that my data doesn't line up well, and it's going to enable the floating trap. So click floating layer, click yes, and there we go. Floating trap has been enabled. Now what does that do? What it does is allow me to capture different lengths of data and have the report reader adjust itself to take that into account. So this is what we look for. There's my first bit of information that I want to look at, the IP address, or the client host name, whatever it's called. But I notice that there's a space, and then a dash, a space, and a dash. If I wanted to capture the IP address with the floating trap enabled, put my mouse right there and say there is a space right there. Okay, so report reader says, okay, there's lots of spaces. What do you want me to do with it? The way that it works is it lets me capture the data from the beginning to the space. Left click, drag, and release the mouse. You notice how it moved itself back to the length of the IP address that I trapped, but I missed some stuff down here. But if we scroll through the document, the trap floats back and forth to actually catch the data. The only thing that we got to do is say the display width or the actual width needs to be adjusted. So with these little radio buttons right here, move the length, and now you've captured it even though it's one character past your trap. So now we're getting close. The next thing we need to do is apply various floating traps throughout the line. The date starts with an open bracket every time, and the date ends with a colon. Even though that colon moves across the page, as long as I've got the floating trap applied, if I left click and drag, IDEA adjusts itself to capture the data wherever it sits on the page. Now this is extremely handy because all the reports are not always very linear in nice tidy columns. So I would continue across the page capturing the data that I'm interested in. There's a space right there because I want the time. I want to get this is the microseconds, and it has a closed bracket. Left click and drag. You get the picture? Identify the beginning of the floating trap and the end of the floating trap, and then drag your mouse across it. And if you save that layer, IDEA is going to put that into a usable format for you. Obviously, I would have gone through and named the columns. IP. This would be date. And I would probably say, you know what? It's a date. And the mask is day / month / year. And then I would go, and this is time. And I would give it a time mask. So this is hour, colon, minute, colon, second. You get the picture. So let's go ahead and save. We already saved it, preview the layer, and now we've got our data identified for us. One more time, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, let's open up a template. I've got a template for the access text file. Click open. It identifies all my data for me using the template that I created in a previous run and saving it. And now, if I preview it, all of the data that I'm interested in is captured into the file all the way across. So the last step is literally just to, if I want to, resave the template or import the data into IDEA, give it a name, click Finish, and I've got a second database based on my floating trap. Floating traps are very powerful to actually handle some of those super headache-inducing reports that you get that don't line up well. Web logs, just various fixed length files that you get where it's just a long row of data that's kind of been dumped from some sort of system, like a mainframe system used to do it. But a lot of microcomputers and whatnot do that, text dumps. Okay, so that was a quick one. What we're going to do now is we are going to do another polling question. Looks like most people are getting the right thing. Looks like 100% voted already. The correct answer is base layer. And very good. So I think we're good to go again. The base layer is the first layer. If you delete that base layer, you've also deleted all of your append layers. So you get to start over. So be careful on that. All right, I'm going to close this guy down. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, now this is kind of a long PDF, so it does take a couple of seconds, about 25, 30 seconds to actually unwind the PDF and then be able to pull that PDF into the report reader. But I want to show you what it looks like. I got a short one here I'm going to open up, then I'm going to actually do the long one. Okay, so let me get the file open here. There's a short one just for demo purposes. And I'm going to drag this guy over. And then I'm going to try to make it bigger so we can actually see it. Okay, so this is a faked up report that I had created for me. You know, a lot of good information in here with real people's names and stuff, but who the heck knows who they are. But this is the scenario I get asked all the time is I get these reports and there's a document or a line of information right there with the document number and associated dollars and whatnot. But on top of that, there's a whole bunch of information that is related to one document or, as we can see down here, possibly multiple documents. It doesn't matter because what you're going to do is you're going to identify a single document. You're going to identify how that document looks in relation to all the other documents, the data across the line. And then you're going to associate the header information to the document, an append layer, okay? Base layer, append layer. So how would we do that? I'm going to drag this guy into IDEA. All the tabs, there we go. Drag that guy out of the way. And again, you're going to have to give me a couple seconds here because this is a big report. I think it's several hundred pages. Import into IDEA. It knows that it's a PDF. It's going to use a report reader by default. I have a spot for my template. I'll put the template on it to show you after I show you how to create that template. Hit next. So here's the PDF in the report reader. Header information by sub-document. Header information document. Header information document. All of that changes, so we get to use various attributes. But what we want to focus on is I don't care about this stuff up here. I don't care about the document, the header names, any of this information. If I do, I can capture it in a second or a third append layer. But what I want to do is left click on my transaction, drag and release the button and create a standard layer. And the reason I do a standard layer is because I've already opened this document up in Adobe. I've interrogated it and found out it's very linear. All of the document numbers are in the same spot. The types are very, very much in a column. The dates, the amounts, discounts, right, all that good stuff. Lines up well all the way through. So after putting my anchor line, I need to trap the data. So there's a bunch of ways you can do it. If I put my mouse up here and say, you know what, it looks like a number right there every time. And another number and another number. Because I know my document numbers are all at least 6 characters long. If I put my numeric trap right in the middle of it, I'm probably going to get it. I can also add other traps. My dollars line up right there all the time. So let's go ahead and scroll down. And you can see I'm capturing just the records that I'm interested in, just the rows of data that I'm interested in. So that's a good thing. I'm getting rid of the minutia, all of the stuff that accompanies the particular document. The next step is to capture the columns within the data that's trapped. Left click, drag, release, and give it a name. Document number. I don't want it to be numeric. I want it to be character. Left click, drag, give it a name. Left click, drag, give it a name. And this one is actually a date. So we're going to call it a date, and we have to tell it what does the mask look like right here on the screen. So that's month / day / year. And then IDEA will import it and make it into a date column. So field statistics will give you all kinds of cool info. And then you want to capture dollars. Now I always give it a little bit of fudge factor there because maybe more dollars or less dollars. So this is amount. Numeric 2 decimal places. Okay, I'm going to continue across over here, getting the current 31 to 60, 61, 90, 91 over. Don't care about the balances, but I'll show you that with the template that I've already created. Let's go ahead and save the layer. Now I need to associate this document number with the data that sits above it. This is the append layer. And this is what people ask about. Well, my data is on multiple lines. What do I have to do? How can I do it? It's actually very simple. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of data that I want to capture and associate with a document. I put my mouse right here, left click and start dragging, and I capture all 4 of those lines and create another layer. The little hashtag right here tells me what row I'm going to use to anchor the data. So if I wanted to put it here, I had moved it to that line. I like it on the customer because it lines up well. If I put my colon there, you notice how it highlighted the whole block. The whole header block above each one of the documents is now highlighted. What that means is I can literally go in and start capturing the data within the block anywhere in the block. Left click, drag, give it a name. Change the attribute to use that value until the value changes. Because remember down here, there's 2 line items, and I want this customer to be associated with both line items. So that's an important attribute to your document right there. So now you just keep on going across the row. And adjusting the attribute. You go to the next one. And adjust the attribute. You see what I mean? I can get them from multiple rows within this block. It doesn't matter. Okay, so that's enough for now. Let me show you what that looks like. If I save this layer and I click the preview button, the information gets put into a single line. So the document number and its associated header information get put on a single line. And as we can see, there's one with 2, there's one with 2 documents. So it does, in fact, use the information until that information changes. Very, very strong. That's a good way to make a very pretty, very well-formatted printed report into transactional level data that we can use. All right, so let's go ahead. Now you can see I've got a bunch of information here. I did this report cradle to grave. I finished it out in a previous sample. I'm going to open the template. I don't want to save the one I'm working on, but I do want to do this aging, and there we go. So all of my columns are imported. I can use this little utility right here to change the order of my fields because I want this block of information before my document information. So you just click on it and you use the move up, move down, or literally drag it however you want it. You preview the data. Now you can see you got the customer, the name, type, salesperson, contact, territory, all of the information all the way down to the dollars, the end of the report. So the first time through, you'd click the Save button, give it an appropriate name. At this point, it already knows the name of the template. I just have to import that guy into IDEA. Give it a name for the file that will be generated inside of IDEA. And I've got another report imported into IDEA that was virtually unusable from an analytics standpoint. Now it's in a very good usable form. All of the statistics, the history, everything is included. You click on history, it shows you where, when, who did it, what template was used, how many records are imported, and of course the script, so you can have IDEA create you a script to be able to redo this in just a single click. The field statistics will be calculated up, so every numeric and every date column and any time column if you've created them for the project, for the actual import. I've got my date range, earliest and latest, if there's any error records, and then of course all of the action items. I want to see the items on Sunday. Click on the job and it'll actually pull those out for you. All of the IDEA functionality is still in effect. We're good to go. Click back on the data and you're ready to go. Okay, looks like we have a few minutes left, so I would like to address this just because it bit me, gave me a big issue. It gave me a heartache a little while ago. So I'm going to close this guy out and I'm going to start the process by showing you what gave me the heartache. I'm going to drag this over, and I've got these two files. Again, they're made up. I'm going to open up this general ledger Excel spreadsheet here. Now, if you notice over here, I cleaned this one up. A lot of times these guys will have 5, 6, 7 lines of information, header information. I went through and I just deleted them. That's an easy way to, you can do it in IDEA. This is an easy way to do it. Now I want you to notice the dates. 10/1. This is called 10/1/2015, 9/30/2016 GL. The dates are from 10/1 to 9/30. Now on this version of it, I left, this is Scott's Project GL import, and it's the same file. The dates are within a certain range. So I want you to, this is what I want to point out for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that guy directly into IDEA, and I'll do this one. Standard. Now check the dates out. That says 1/10/2015. Something inside of the Excel spreadsheet is causing my dates to be backwards. It's interpreting it incorrectly. It's not 10/1/2015, it's 1/10/2015. That's going to be a little bit of an issue. What I want you to get in the habit of doing, even though there are no column names or headers in this report, I want you to click the buttons and have IDEA. What this does is it kicks in some functionality and some logic inside of Excel, inside of IDEA's Excel import that knows how to interpret the dates. You notice how it put a blank date right there? Get in the habit of doing this. If you see anomalies, it doesn't happen all the time, but every once in a while it gets really strange, and I don't know why. But click the first row is field names, even if they're not, and click import empty cells as numeric cells as 0, even if you don't care. When I click OK, by changing or clicking those two buttons, it looked like the file was not going to interpret the dates correctly, but it in fact does change them to the way that they're supposed to be. So that's the freebie that I wanted to kind of give to you. I was going round and round with dates not showing up properly on a project that I was helping a client with. And she said, this is something that happens with Excel now and again, and it causes IDEA to not interpret date ranges correctly. If you click those two buttons, it cleans up the logic inside it and actually makes sure dates form properly. All right. That's the last bit that I have right here. We're bumping up right about an hour. We've got about 8 or 9 minutes. At this time, if you have questions, I'd be more than happy. Please type them into the chat box, and I'll do my darndest to be able to answer anything that you have. It says, will we get a copy of the video? We will absolutely get you a copy before too long. Oh man, there's all kinds of good questions. Hang on a second. Let me see. I was looking at the chat, not the questions. So, holy moly. Hang on a second. Okay. Will the presentation slides be provided? Those are some minimal slides, but I can get you that. Absolutely. So let's see. Hang on a second. Get down to the bottom. I appreciate you guys hanging with me. What is a good control total to verify? You know what? The way that I do that is I have my handy Excel spreadsheet or my PDF or my text document open in another window, and after I import it, I will take the a dollar value and go over here onto the screen and have IDEA calculate up a control total, or literally just go to field statistics and have IDEA give me all of the numeric totals. That way I can just roll down to the bottom of my PDF, my Excel spreadsheet, whatnot, and check it out. So that's an easy way to do it. And it's a fantastic double check because you may not have trapped all the data correctly. You might miss a whole bunch of rows. You never know. So that's what I always do. Import the data, go to field stats, and check a balance to make sure that I'm good. Okay, I missed the second polling question. If the date format differs throughout the report, 12/1/2/17, 10/1/17, what mask do you do? Okay, great question. What I typically do on that is I import it as a character. Don't try to have IDEA interpret the dates, because if it's all different, you got month, day, year, date, month, whatever, IDEA is not going to be able to interpret all of those dates. So import it as a character and then use the capabilities inside of IDEA to clean that up. A great way to do that is on the Home tab, go to Passport. Get yourself logged in, get yourself a username and password to go to the Passport, and there's a whole library of equations and scripts that can handle various formatting of dates. I've got several of them over here in my, right there, dates parsed by slashes and long format. You can download a bunch of those and have it clean up those dates for you. Import as a character and then do it inside of IDEA. Okay, let's see. It's a numbered data that is weird. I need to have you expound on that just a little bit more. I get number data that's always weird, like account numbers or invoice numbers. Somebody puts an invoice number and puts an A at the end of it. Well, the report reader is actually going to kick you out not an error, it's a warning that says, this field, you said it's a number, it looks like it's not a number. Do you want to change it? What it'll do is it'll change the field from numeric to character field type. You'll be able to import the data, not a problem. And then take care of it inside of IDEA. The end of a floating trap, the beginning and the end, that's what you got to do. To begin the document, you're obviously going to go from the beginning of the row to the first floating trap, so obviously the beginning of the trap doesn't count. But from any data that's inside of the row from that point forward, you need to do a beginning and an end floating trap character. And that way it knows to start roughly right here and to go to roughly right here, and you can adjust it with the various attributes for the column. All right. Good tip at the end has happened to me. Yep, it happened to me. That's actually the first time that I had the Excel dates not work, and I was just pulling my hair out. And I finally went and talked with our help desk, that good old 20-minute rule, and Andrew and Jerry both kind of chuckled at me and said, yep, Excel does that stuff to you. Click the buttons every time just because, and it'll clean stuff up for you. All right, do you have a recommendation for a PDF OCR tool? I really don't. We have Adobe Acrobat in-house, and that's the one I use. I mean, Adobe created PDFs. They're the strongest, but there's a ton of them out there. I think I've used in the past called something like PageMaker. I can't remember, but there are a bunch of them. If you Google OCR tools, they'll hook you up on that. Okay, I got the same question again. If the date thing differs, we've already talked about that one. Wondering how to import those. I'm assuming that's weird numbers. I addressed that. Import them as character, and then you can modify it or clean it up inside of IDEA. What's a good control total? Any of the dollar values will work. Control total over here. go into field statistics, looking at all those. They all work really well. Oh, copy of the video. Yes, we will do that. I may want to go through and redo it, clean it up a little bit because stuff happened, but I want you guys to have a good, solid, clean copy instead of fumbling around. Let's see. Data looks like, yeah, that looks like a European dollar where it uses a comma instead of it's a 5 dot numbers, comma 82. European numeric format, sometimes they'll use a comma as a dollars and cents separator. With the raw data inside the number, dot was displayed instead of comma, and comma was displayed instead of a dot. You can do a replacement inside of IDEA with that if you need to. Import it as a character and then clean it up using one of the many app functions that are available. Help Desk can help you with that very easily. Any other questions? That was the last one. Okay, hang on one second. I've been instructed by Kelly to say we're recording the session. The session slides and recording should be sent out as soon as I get you a nice clean copy. And to qualify, you need to get your CPEs. You need to fill out the short survey. There's a short survey at the end. Please fill it out and get it back to Kelly, and we'll get you CPEs. So if there's no other questions, again, I do apologize for the slight technical difficulties. I hope this information was useful and you can apply it in conquering your challenging and difficult report imports. If not, by all means, get a hold of our help desk. They are wizards with getting PDF and printed data into IDEA and making it actually useful where you can get that work done. Again, thanks a bunch. I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your day, and make it a great day.